What powers the future of your business? Seamless digital transformation or unlimited opportunities to innovate? Be at the forefront of it with 5G private networks, powered by Malaysia's widest and fastest network. From industries like oil and gas to manufacturing, achieve the agility your business needs with ultra-fast and secure connectivity. Find out more at business.celcomdg.com, your trusted business partner.
This is a podcast from BFM 89.9, the business station.
BFM 89.9, the business station. My name is Rich Bradbury. Good afternoon and welcome to Enterprise Explores. This is the show where we help you navigate the ever-changing universe of business from the headlines down to the bottom line. Now, are you like me and a bit of a frequent online shopper? Do you get attracted to those shiny discounts and all the super deals that many sellers on these e-commerce platforms are offering us on a daily, hourly, sometimes even by the minute basis? Now, one of the latest platforms that's been gaining a bit of traction in Southeast Asia, including Malaysia, is Temu or Temu, depending on where you're from. However, as Southeast Asia's digital economy progresses, countries like Indonesia are taking steps to protect local micro SMEs by blocking foreign e-commerce platforms such as Temu. Now, this move is part of Indonesia's broader strategy to safeguard its domestic market from the dominance of foreign platforms. The government cited concerns that platforms like Temu, which offer highly competitive prices, could disrupt local businesses and undermine the competitiveness of homegrown enterprises. Could an approach like this work for Malaysia? And should it? Today, we're going to be exploring the potential impacts of such policies on Malaysia's digital landscape, examining both the benefits and risks for local businesses, innovation and foreign investment. I'm speaking with Dr. Carmelo Ferlito, CEO of the Centre for Market Education. And he's here with me today to discuss alternative strategies Malaysia could adopt to support its SMEs whilst fostering a competitive digital-first economy. If you've got any thoughts, you can get us on our U-Mobile WhatsApp number. It is 018-789-8899. Or you can get us on X. We are at BFM Radio. Dr. Carmelo, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. I think for me, it's the first time that I'm seeing you in person for about 4 years, I think.
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
It's been quite some time.
Yeah.
So I'm quite excited about this conversation.
Oh, thank you.
Right. Okay, let's just jump right in then. And to begin with, how do you view Indonesia's decision to block foreign platforms like Temu in this in this effort to protect its MSMEs? Do you think this approach is an effective way to support domestic businesses in today's digital economy?
Well, let me start by saying that I don't buy stuff online, so I'm quite traditional in my shopping. So I don't want that my answers later are seen as the answer of someone that use a lot of online shopping. No, I go around, I sniff my books, so really, if it was up to me, probably digital platforms would not exist. But
I love your honesty.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, I'm a dinosaur, under many perspectives. Mm-hmm. So, but having said that, I think either you support or not the spirit and the merit of this kind of ban. I believe that these regulations sound a little bit like the attempt to stop a running train with a finger. So, I'm not saying that the entrance of players like Temu will be without consequences for small and medium businesses, but this is always the case when innovation enters the market. And it is enough to go back and read my favorite economist, actually, Joseph Schumpeter, when he was talking about creative destruction, I think a term which is familiar with the audience. So this term can be found in Schumpeter in 1911, so more than a century ago. So there is something disruptive, obviously, in innovation, which is part of the nature of innovation, and it is the fight between the new, which tries to enter the market, and the old way of doing things that try to survive. And we can't avoid that if we want the economy to progress, if we want in every aspect of our life to progress. So some telluric movement, some earthquake there is unavoidable.
dinosaurs still need to exist at the side of current technology in some way, so to speak. Would that be accurate in saying that?
Yeah, I think, looking example.
There's space for both, is what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, look at the music space. I mean, we are on a radio.
Yeah.
There has been an evolution from the long plane to the cassettes, the CD, then all the digital music. And now there is a very interesting coming back of the long planes because the people that really like to listen at music with a certain kind of atmosphere, listening at a record from head to toe, they buy the long plane. That kind of sound that comes from the old loudspeakers. If you want to listen to the Led Zeppelin or to the 1990s music, is better. So I think there is a space, and the market will be made more of niche markets. Probably the mass market will not be anymore the mass market that we know. The type of mass consumption is not anymore the old type of mass consumption, but then the old consumption will find its niche, which will become a more elite niche, if you want. Like me, I mean, I buy quite a lot of books, and I look for special editions, books that have a certain smell, made of certain paper, and therefore we still need bookshop. Maybe will be less, but will be more high-end shops and less mass market shops.
Makes absolute sense. Yeah. Now, given this increasing trend of countries in Southeast Asia implementing these stricter regulations on foreign digital platforms, what impact then do you think similar policies could have on Malaysia's very own digital economy if something like this were adopted here?
I think that Malaysia so far adopted a more pragmatic approach, so we don't really see the desire to ban new platforms, new forms of business, but Malaysia has preferred to go on taxation. So that's why I'm talking about a pragmatic approach, and I think the country is trying to enhance its digital ecosystem, although regulations are not perfect, sometimes in conflict with each other. But in general, we see a different trend here, and I think what we should aim for is harmonized regulation, whereby the competition process is enhanced in the direction of fairness, rather than moving toward utopic prohibitions, which again, in the end, the market will find its way to play around. Look at what happened with TikTok Shop in Indonesia. It was banned. Then they bought over Tokopedia, and then so they found they exit from the door, they enter from the window.
Nice way of putting it. Yeah. Now, some people might argue that these measures could create a more level playing field for local businesses against larger global competitors. But from an economic perspective, what are the potential benefits and drawbacks of such protectionist policies for local MSMEs in Malaysia?
What does really mean, a playing field on this? It's while I understand the point, I agree on the fact that we need fair competition, but we don't have to use this expression to hide new forms of protectionism, because in the end, what will happen is that consumers will get more expensive products, innovation will anyhow find its way, and you will stop local businesses from trying to compete and therefore to upgrade themselves to become more competitive and aggressive on the digital scenario. So I don't really see any kind of benefit from new protectionist measures. Will be just a way to delay a process of innovation that is going to happen anyhow. And somehow also to stop local businesses from upgrading. I mean, look at some classical examples like, the typing machine, the fax machine. What would have been the attempt to protect them from the computers and from internet, from all, just an utopic attempt to stop something that is unavoidable. So we have to play smart and rather try to find a way for our businesses to surf the wave of innovation rather than become a victim. And protection surely is not the way for them to surf that wave.
Hold that thought. Folks, this is Enterprise Explores, the show where we help you navigate the ever-changing universe of business. From the headlines down to the bottom line, I'm speaking with Dr. Carmelo Ferlito, the CEO of Center for Market Education. We're discussing the potential impacts of blocking foreign e-commerce platforms to protect local and micro SMEs, examining some of the benefits and risks for local businesses, and alternative strategies that Malaysia could adopt to support its MSMEs while fostering a competitive digital-first economy. I'm Rich Bradbury. We'll be right back after a few messages. Keep it here on BFM 89.9, the business station.
Bruce Freddie Morrissey, BFM 89.9.
BFM 89.9, the business station. Welcome back to Enterprise Explores. It is the show where we'll help you navigate the ever-changing universe of business, from those headlines right down to the bottom line. We are discussing the potential impacts of blocking foreign e-commerce platforms like Temu to protect local micro SMEs. We've seen Indonesia do this. Some other countries are potentially following as well. We're examining both the benefits and the risks for local businesses and alternative strategies that Malaysia could adopt to support its MSMEs whilst fostering a competitive digital-first economy. I am speaking with Dr. Carmelo Ferlito, the CEO of the Center for Market Education. Thank you for sticking around. I've not managed to scare you off just yet. We looked at a bit about protectionism just before we went for a break. Now, what are the challenges that Malaysia might face in trying to balance this need to protect, I say that in inverted commas, its SMEs from global competition, but while still encouraging that innovation that we know that we need and attracting foreign investments to support this whole digital-first economy, which, as we know, is this whole gigantic push towards getting us towards it. How do we balance it?
Well, do we really need to balance? No, in the sense, the scenario is changing. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, there is a trend which is unstoppable, and the mass market, the mass consumption for certain kind of products will go digital. This is out of doubt, despite the dinosaurs like me. Obviously, there will be businesses that will try to fight back, to ask for protection, but to be honest, if I look at the Southeast Asia environment in general, I have been living here for 15 years, I found that even micro businesses tend to be extremely adaptive and adoptive of new technologies. Now, even mama shops have all these fancy systems for payment, which I don't understand. I go around with my wallet, I open my wallet, people look at me and say, do you really want to pay cash?
Let me ask you though, do you think that would have been there had it not been for COVID?
I think that probably the lockdown that we experienced a few years back has accelerated the path, but the trend was already in motion. I mean, the digital platforms were already there, and somehow we have experienced a bubble of digital platform because we were all forced to buy things digitally, even myself, and then now the situation is normalizing, so we are going toward a structure of digital commerce which is responding to market signals and not just the response to government regulations. So I think that we will be here anyhow, probably with some little time difference, but the process was already there. Yeah.
So we were saying, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam are coming down with stricter regulations. Talk to me about the potential economic risks and the operational cost implications to businesses if we were to bring in these kind of regulations.
Obviously, investors, they look around, they look at which is the country that has the most favorable regulation in order to set up shop. And we must stress that by nature, this kind of business tend to escape regulations because they tend to escape geographical boundaries, as we know.
Right.
So what does really mean to apply a certain kind of regulatory framework to a business which is virtual by nature? Where is the cloud? On the clouds. So how do we grasp that and to whom clouds belong, So I think again that these kind of regulations are really some desperate attempts to use an old mindset for something that cannot be entrapped in that mindset. And so businesses will move where they perceive that a new mindset is more present. Probably they will look not only at regulations but also at the mentality on the ground. If you look at Indonesia, in example, you may have this kind of regulations which are made by policymakers which are obviously disconnected from reality. But then the reality on the ground in Indonesia is super digital. It's probably one of the countries with the biggest number of people dealing with cryptocurrencies. It is the country where for the first time I heard about cryptocurrencies. I was in Indonesia, I think, in 2012 when I read an article about Bitcoin on the Jakarta Globe. I still remember it's stuck in my mind. So businesses will find a way to turn around, to play around regulations, and I think that governments will have to think about something that is different, also in terms of policy perspective.
I mean, if we think back about a decade ago, and we use an example from Europe and from China. China at that point were flooding the European market with photovoltaic. What do you call it?
The panels.
The panels, the solar panels. And because of that, 90% of the market in the UK and in Europe were then taken up by Chinese manufacturers making photovoltaic panels. And of course, Europe panicked and said, we're not going to let that happen again, and brought in regulation to stop that from happening again. Is there a point, though, that you might see Malaysia kind of adopt a similar kind of mentality? What would be that straw almost that broke the camel's back, do you think? When we have Temu, we have Shein, we have a whole bunch of them, But Malaysians love to shop online. Is there anything that would cause the government to say, enough's enough, we need to do something now?
Isn't funny that the Europe implements a protectionist regulation on green products?
Yeah. I mean, it made me laugh a little bit.
So if you think about it, it makes us laugh. But so far, if I look at Malaysia, it doesn't seem that the kind of approach that we have seen in Indonesia or Vietnam or Thailand is prevailing here.
Right.
I don't see at this moment in time the attempt to move in that direction. Digital environment is quite vibrant in the country. Probably there is a perception also at the policy level about that. And I see and I hope that Malaysia will continue maintaining a liberal approach to it. Otherwise, we'll be again putting yourself on the line of countries that haven't understood where business is going.
I mean, like we just look at Vietnam and we look at Indonesia and of course Thailand. It feels like we're in a pleasant bubble almost. Why do you think that is?
Malaysia is in a pleasant bubble
right now.
Probably I don't know. Probably is a more realistic.
As a consumer, I should say.
Well, I think that probably Malaysia also the level of policymakers have a less ideological approach to things that the countries that you have mentioned have. Probably the nationalistic rhetoric in countries like Indonesia is very strong, in particular now with the new government coming up. I've been in Vietnam very recently for the Ho Chi Minh City Economic Forum, and there was a lot of talking about digital transformation. And then you see, the kind of institutional framework, to put it mildly, that regulate Vietnam may have ambitions in a certain direction, but the mentality is still the Ho Chi Minh without city mentality, and you see that when you speak with policymakers, is a Politburo approach which comes from the 1970s, still there. And you don't bring digital transformation with that approach, because technological change is not something that can be imposed from the top down. Technological transformation, innovation is such as a bottom-up process. You can think that something is an innovation, but ultimately, if that innovation doesn't encounter the market favor, it is not an innovation at all. Because it's not enough for a product, for a way of doing things, to be new, to be an innovation. It needs to enter the production process, needs to make the life of people easier, and eventually find the favor of consumers. Otherwise, may just be a brilliant idea. There have been a lot of brilliant ideas in our history of mankind that didn't find the way for success. That's it.
Right, we need to take another short break here, folks. You are tuned in, of course, to Enterprise Explores. It is the show where we'll help you navigate the ever-changing universe of business from the headlines to the bottom line. We're discussing the potential impacts of blocking foreign e-commerce platforms to protect local micro SMEs. We're looking at some of the benefits and risks for local businesses. I am speaking with Dr. Carmelo Ferlito, the CEO of the Center for Market Education. We'll be right back after these messages here on BFM 89.9, the business station.
Be free-minded. BFM 89.9.
BFM 89.9, the business station. Welcome back to Enterprise Explores. I am Rich Bradbury. It is the show, of course, where we'll help you navigate the ever-changing universe of business from the headlines to the bottom line. Here with me today is Dr. Carmelo Ferlito, the CEO of the Center for Market Education. We're looking at the benefits and risks for local businesses and alternative strategies that Malaysia could adopt to support its MSMEs whilst fostering a competitive digital-first economy if they were to go ahead and block foreign e-commerce platforms to protect local and micro SMEs, as is happening over in Indonesia right now. So, in your view, what role do you think the government should be playing when it comes to fostering the growth of local tech startups whilst regulating foreign competitors to ensure fair competition? And are there any other countries or examples from countries that Malaysia could look to as a role model for that?
So first of all, I think that the starting point should always be the rule of law. So we need simple, clear, and generalized rules that are applicable to everybody. This is the concept of free and fair competition. Mm-hmm. So this means that the rules need to be clear, taxation need to be fair, and it doesn't matter if you are local or foreigners, taxation needs to be the same. Then something I see as important is the protection of property rights, both physical property rights and intellectual property rights. We have in Washington the Property Rights Alliance, which is doing a great work on producing, case studies and indexes that help us navigating, understanding the international scenario on this. So rule of law and protection of physical and intellectual property rights, I think, should be the territory to explore and to work more in terms of regulation, in terms of broader regulation. To look at something more specific, I have in mind, because I think that one of the problems that afflict Malaysian capitalism is the overprevalence of micro businesses. So 78% of our businesses are micro businesses, 98% are small and micro businesses. So what to do there? I look at a regulation that was adopted, in example, in my own country, in Italy, a few decades ago, applicable to all sectors, and was what they were called the entrepreneurial network or enterprise network. This was the attempt to take businesses doing different parts of processes in the same line of business, in the same supply chain, and say to them, listen, go together, set up a network so that you have the same administration, the same logistics, so you unify some of the processes so you can save on your costs, and then we give you some fiscal incentive if you are able, by growing your scale, by growing your aggressivity in the market, by growing together, we will give you fiscal incentives.
Mm-hmm. So show us what you've got before we give you something.
Yeah, sure. I mean, go ahead, show your. This is important. I think is a very important point for Malaysia to understand that size matters.
Yeah.
The scale of business matters. And if you want to be more aggressive on foreign markets, if you want to be more competitive on foreign competition, you need to be strong.
Do you think, though, that Malaysians are so comfortable with being an MSME, and they're just like, it's easy being this, I don't have to worry too much about it, I'm just supplying to those few people that I need, to my few customers, it's ideal for me. I don't need the headache of going to Singapore, or I don't need the headache of going to Thailand or wherever.
The problem is that the world is changing, and you can't maintain those consolidated positions. Okay, I sell to few selected suppliers and I mean, I have enough for my survival and not too much stress, which is actually not true, actually, because you have to, when you have a small company, you tend to work more than when you are part of a bigger complex. And so obviously there is a cultural obstacle there, the idea of being independent, of not responding to a boss, or not having other stakeholders involved. But this is, and I keep on insisting on this, I think that is the direction where we have to go. We have, 2% of Malaysian companies produce 63% of the GDP. That's not sustainable, I think, in the long run. It means that basically a small group of companies is basically holding on the economy, the national economy.
Now, as we see more countries adopt these data localization requirements, so that's before we get to the end, like those, particularly in Vietnam, how might these regulations affect both the cost for business and the broader digital economy in Malaysia? Is that something that will scare off foreign investors?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the regulation. I think that the important aspect in terms of regulation will be harmonization, so that if you want to be welcoming of the digital, the new digital platform, the new digital businesses, you must have a comprehensive regulation which is welcoming. It cannot be welcoming at, let's say, the data center level and not welcoming at the e-commerce level, because these businesses sooner or later will get integrated, will build a bigger supply chain, and the countries that will be able to attract them holistically will probably have a competitive advantage in the global competition run. Yeah.
I guess my final question then is, a proponent of market-driven solutions as you are, alternative strategies that you think would be the best suggestions for supporting MSMEs here in Malaysia, competing with the global digital giants without resorting to the protectionist strategies that we've been talking about?
Well, here I repeat myself. First and foremost, fairness of rules. So allow your businesses to be protected not because they enjoy more favorable rules, but because they can really play on the ring with the same set of rules, but knowing that competitors may be stronger in terms of their scale of operations, support, drive, incentivize the growth process of our businesses with educational initiatives, fiscal incentives, and really also in terms of communication policy.
Dr. Carmelo Ferlito, thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks to you. It was a pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. Folks, I was speaking with Dr. Carmelo Ferlito, the CEO of the Center for Market Education. If you missed any part of this conversation, you can catch the podcast on our website at bfm.my or download the BFM app. You can also search for our shows on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast players. Just search for Enterprise Explores. I am Rich Bradbury. Do keep it here on BFM 89.9, the business station.
You have been listening to a podcast from BFM 89.9, the business station. For more stories of the same kind, download the BFM app.